It puts back into people's hearts the knowledge, the expectation, and the desire to be loved by God. To reclaim a relationship with God. It gives them new life. It draws their feet from the miry clay. It is resurrection. It is reform. It is transfiguration. It is all these things. And it is changing minds. Sunshine Cathedral has a church now in Jamaica. And MCC at the highest level has been meeting with the Prime Minister of Jamaica and church leaders in Jamaica. Our first step, just to get church leaders, like the head of the Roman Catholic and the Anglican Church in Jamaica, just to stand up and say that the torture and murder of gay people is wrong. That has been a challenge. Many of them won't even say that. But we are making enormous progress and we're now being heard. So, in the coming year and in the coming years, we are going to bind ourselves ever more closely to this extraordinary endeavour, this life-giving endeavour, which is unfurling around the world in our name. In our name. And it's largely made possible, it's almost exclusively made possible, because of the generosity and the passion and the energy of MCC Christians in America. It's impossible to believe that this work could be carried on, that elders and experts and advocates could travel overseas if it wasn't for the core constituency of MCC, which is still in America. But let me tell you something else. There is another thing we are voting on at Acapulco, another change we're voting on, which will transform the face of the leadership of the Fellowship of Metropolitan Community Churches. Nancy Wilson, the moderator, is asking for the ability. Now, first of all, let me put this in context. She is suggesting that we move to a structure which reflects our local church structures. So we have an elected board of directors who have responsibility for financial operations and responsibility to make sure that we are all abiding by the rules that we've all agreed to. But we also are going to move to a situation where Nancy has the right to appoint the elders. Now, everyone said, oh, that's anti-democratic, that's wrong. No, well, we're moving to a more democratic way when it comes to the board of directors. But I'll tell you what, democracy is good in as far as it goes. But if we really believe in vocation, if we really believe in God speaking to people, if we really believe in religiously and spiritually inspired leaders, then we have to understand that it's not down to us to make all the decisions. We put those decisions in the hands of leaders, and we should allow those leaders to lead. Now, Nancy firmly believes that the future is in a church that has a leadership that better reflects the world we are coming to inhabit. Because one of the downfalls of democracy is people have a nasty habit of voting for people who look like them. And if they don't vote for people who look like them, they vote for people who think the same way as them, which are usually people who look like them. So the democratic system means that the majority of our elders are white, and the majority of our elders are American. That's going to change. It's only going to change if Nancy is given this power, let us say. This discretion, this insight. It will mean that our elders will reflect the church we are coming to be, and not just the church that we were. The church in the Philippines, the church in Africa, the church in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Singapore, Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Moldova, all these places we are now represented. But because they are small in numbers and resources, they are not represented. That will change. So, I don't know about you, but my resurrection is a real thing this year. Realer than I can ever remember it, except on that day in 1996, on Easter morning, at 5 o'clock in the morning, when I was baptized, and when I refound my relationship with God. I've refound something of myself again this Easter. I have remembered the new life I've been given. And I am more than ever determined to use every ounce of my strength to prosper the new life in this church, and in this community, and this fellowship and denomination. And I hope I hope and I pray that you will continue to support that. Amen. You'll also be pleased to know that I don't know whether dear James have actually got something to do the offering, but there's not going to be. Who did you get? Who?
Myself.
Yourself! Oh, well, I'm going to pluck it from you, because we're not going to have a little offering piece today, because this is the offering piece. Each of you got one of these, I hope. Yeah, have you all got one?
Yes.
Well, there will be one outside of the table if you haven't. This gives some sort of idea of what's been going on just at the moment in MCC. And a vital thing is the GEM campaign, which enables people that we've been talking about, pastors, lay leaders, delegates, members of the congregation from these far-flung churches, many of whom are poor in physical resources, to come to our grand central gathering, our conference, in order to be trained, in order to be built up, in order to be given inspiration, in order to be supported, and in order to make their voices heard. Many of them cannot afford to get to Mexico. Well, that's what the GEM campaign is for. MCC is organising it so that the wealthier churches, and that means everything in the US or Europe, you know, everything's relative, can help one of these members to come from Africa or Asia or Eastern Europe or wherever, or South America or wherever it may be. I ask you to have a good look at that. We'll be taking 2 collections today. One of them will very ostentatiously have one of these sticking out of it, so you'll know which it is, and that is for our Easter offering for UFMCC. And it will be used to help people come to Acapulco who couldn't otherwise go to Acapulco. So please think very deeply about that one. I will be taking another collection on that next Sunday in case people didn't bring their checkbooks and needed to squirrel off home and get them ready for the collection next Sunday. I feel passionate about this. I really do. Some people have said, well, why is it in Acapulco? Well, again, you know, that's a bit of an Americano-centric idea that it's only got to be in America. It's been close to America most of the time for the last 10 years, you know. But if you happen to be in South Africa or Singapore, you know, Mexico's as close as anywhere else. So please give this some thought. And also think over the next week, how can you be a part of the resurrection of this church and of this fellowship? Because I think we are at a turning point whereby the fellowship is going to move forward and become something very new and much more dynamic than we've been given to expect. Fellowship has been a good friend of this church, a very good friend of this church. This church would never have survived Katrina if it hadn't been for UFMCC. They put in a lot of money at a time when they certainly didn't have a lot of money. And now is a chance to give back. They have cut costs like you wouldn't believe. They've removed large numbers of posts. People have taken salary cuts over the last year to 2 years. They sold their building, which was donated to them back in the 1970s, I believe, in West Hollywood. They moved to Abilene, Texas, ladies and gentlemen. This is how serious these people are about cutting costs. They moved to Abilene, Texas. I said that again because some of you didn't see the full import of moving a whole bunch of gay folk and lesbians and transgender folk to Abilene, Texas. This means they were serious. So, when it comes around for our collection, there'll be 2 different baskets there. And please, rejoice in the resurrection. Rejoice in the new life. Rejoice in the new life that can start any time you choose for it to start, because it is there for you when you choose to take it. But also accept that with it comes a very heavy responsibility.